السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. سعادة السفير عبد الله سيف النعيمي سفير دولة الإمارات العربية المتحدة لدى جمهورية كوريا الجنوبية، بروفيسور يونغ هونغ كينغ، رئيس معهد جيجو للسلام. أيها الحضور الكريم، يسعدني أن نرحب بكم جميعا في هذه الندوة المهمة التي نعقدها في قلب معرض سيول الدولي للكتاب بمشاركتنا الأولى في الدورة ال65 بالتعاون مع شريكنا الاستراتيجي المهم في جمهورية كوريا الجنوبية وهو معهد جيجو للسلام. يسعدني بصفة خاصة أن أرحب بالبروفيسور كينغ رئيس المعهد الذي شرفنا بالحضور في جناح ترنز للبحوث والاستشارات في المعرض، في أول حضور فاعل لترنز في هذا المعرض الدولي المهم. طبعا علاقتنا وشراكتنا الاستراتيجية مع معهد جيجو للسلام بالغة الأهمية وأيضا الحيوية. نحن في ترنز نحرص على تعزيز هذه الشراكة وأيضا تفعيلها بما يخدم أهدافنا البحثية المشتركة. يدعم توجهنا هذا طبعا بالتأكيد يدعم توجهنا العالمي. سبق أن برمنا مع 170 مركز وجامعة بحثية على مستوى العالم اتفاقيات شراكة، وأيضا هذه الشراكات اللي أبرمناها طبعا كان لها توجهها الاستراتيجي وتوجهها الإعلامي وأيضا توجهها البحثي. خدمنا نحن كثير في مركز ترنز البحوث والاستشارات على مستوى العالم. ترنز البحوث والاستشارات يقوم بإصدارات فاقت 202 إصدار ب16 لغة. طبعا الهدف الأساسي هو تعزيز الحوار وأيضا التعاون البحثي البناء اللي يخدم طبعا في النهاية القضايا الإنسانية بشكل عام. لن أطيل عليكم، يسعدني الاستماع إلى آراء الخبراء وأيضا المشاركين في موضوع هذه الندوة اللي تستهدف التأكيد على أهمية تعزيز علاقات الشعوب بوصفها الأساس لصناعة السلام العالمي من خلال العمل المشترك في بناء الثقافة والحوار والتسامح عالميا. مرة أخرى أرحب بكم في جناح ترنز وأترك المجال لاستكمال فعاليات هذه الندوة.
Your Excellency Abdullah Sheikh Al Nuaimi and Dr. Mohammed Abdullah Al Ali and former Ambassador Ma and distinguished academics and researchers and ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Jeju Peace Institute, I welcome all of you representing the Trend Research and Advisory. I'm very pleased to have a joint seminar where I expect to widen the intellectual horizon for our research. The Jeju Peace Institute has focused our research on the issues of peace and cooperation on the Korean Peninsula and Northeast Asia. At the apex of our efforts is the annual Jeju Peace Forum for Peace and Prosperity. The forum was held at Jeju Island 2 weeks ago. I understand that the Trend Advisory, the Trend Research and Advisory had endeavored to find and analyze opportunities and the challenges in the region of the Gulf area and the Middle East and beyond since it was established in 2014. Especially you are highlighting the new research areas, including AI, the sustainable blue economy, and the renewable energy. I think that both of our institute has much in common in terms of pursuing the path to peace and prosperity in the region where we both respectively belong. So I hope that we can make a good start and gradually deepen our exchange of views for mutual benefit. Once again, I welcome all of you and wishing you all the best. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your welcoming remarks. Ladies and gentlemen, Your Excellency, it's a great pleasure to welcome you all to the symposium entitled Relations Among People as a Basis for Global Peacemaking, Building the Culture of Dialogue and Tolerance. This session aims to delve into the fundamental aspects of fostering global peace by emphasizing the significance of constructive relationships among individuals. In an increasingly interconnected world, the session recognizes that the path to harmonious coexistence and resolving conflicts lies in cultivating a culture of open dialogue and tolerance. By exploring the intricate dynamics of human interaction, the session seeks to shed light on the transformative power or mutual understanding, empathy, and respect. Through insightful discussions and practical approaches, participants will be inspired to contribute to the creation of a more peaceful and inclusive global society. I will now open the floor to our two distinguished speakers, who will each deliver an overview of their perspectives. The first discussion is entitled JPI's Peace Index. The presenters are Hyung Lim, Research Director at JPI, and Alec Chung, Research Fellow at JPI. The floor is yours.
So hello everyone. Before I begin, I just want to apologize for actually not wearing a tie because I thought this was going to be something of a less formal meeting. But I'm not trying to disrespect anyone, so I want to apologize for that. Yeah. And today I'm going to introduce the Peace Index, which JPI is developing. It's one of the JPI's flagship projects, and we've been working on this project for like 3 years, and this is actually the 4th year. We are still keep developing, and we're trying to add some new contents and make some more like adjustments. Yeah. And actually, this is a very huge project, so we won't have time to explain everything. We don't want to go into all the like very technical stuff. So, but we just show you a glimpse of what we've been working on. Yeah, very briefly. Yeah. Yeah. So, peace can refer to many things. Like, if we ask, is country A peaceful, you might think, is that country stable in terms of politics or economy, or is that crime rate really low? But we're not talking about that part of peace. That's domestic aspects of peace. What we are referring to by peace is whether like country's foreign relations is very like positive or negative. Yeah. So whether country A is maintaining positive relations with other countries. So for instance, South Korea interacts frequently with other countries like US, China, Japan, Russia, or other countries in Europe or in the Middle East. And South Korea's relations with US is very good. Relations with China is like slightly like declining. South Korea's relationship with Japan is improving, but South Korea's relationship with North Korea is actually like very bad. So if you aggregate all that, if you average all that, then in the end, is South Korea, is it a peaceful country? Whether South Korea's relations with other countries are overall positive or negative. Whether South Korea is a peaceful country in terms of foreign relations. That's what we are trying to measure. And not just South Korea, actually. Yeah, not just South Korea, yeah. Well, we are calculating peace index of 22 countries. So that's G20 plus North Korea, Taiwan, and Singapore, yeah. Yeah, and well, there are different ways to measure relations between countries, but I think we think the best way to measure relations is to collect data regarding like all the events that occur between the two countries as much as we can. Maybe collecting all the data might not be possible. We're trying to collect as many data as possible. Yeah, and how can we do that? We can use a big data called GDELT, the Global Database of Events, Language, and Tone. It's a big data. It uses machine coding software called Tabari to collect news articles. Like it automatically analyzes the context, detect and extract information, and code the data automatically. So it's way faster and it can process a lot more data than relying on human coding. Yeah. Yeah, so using this machine coding software, we collect as many information as possible, and yeah. Yeah. So yeah. So for instance, this is just an example. So there are like millions of articles in GDELT, and the GDELT just uses software, and it automatically just detect and extract information. Like for instance, Japan imposes broad new trade restrictions on South Korea. So if you use GDELT, then it automatically detects Japan, South Korea, and broad new trade restrictions. So that's a conflict, negative event. Yeah, and it's from New York Times, and it just automatically extracts information. And yeah. And well, there are days when there are no events between the two countries, but also there are days when there are like tens of hundreds of events occurring between two states, and some are positive cooperation, some are negative conflict events. So if you aggregate all the events, all the weights, then you can calculate whether the relations between two states were positive or negative in that day, or in that month, or in that year. So, yeah. So for instance, the previous article I showed you was about trade restrictions. So GDELT uses software and then find where trade restriction apply to. So I don't know whether it's accurate, but it's going to be something between like minus 5.6 or minus 5.8. Yeah. And there are events like this, like tens of hundreds of them. Yeah. So for instance, in the same day, there can be like, for instance, there can be like 2 warnings, so that's minus 3.0. Or there can be like assure, reassure, like 2.8, like ask for policy assistance, so 3.0. So let's say there are like 5 events in one day, but if you aggregate all the weight, then you can calculate whether that day the relationship was positive or negative. Yeah. Yeah, thank you. And so GDELT provides the 2 quantitative measures the users can use to quantify relations between the two countries. But again, like I don't think this is time for that, so I don't want to go into all the like specifics and details and technical things, so we can skip that. Yeah. Yeah. And if we use big data, then we can measure state relations in all different ways. We can include like multinational corporations, or like even like civil rights groups or education group, businesses. Yeah. But we are just looking at government-to-government level relations, whether government-to-government relations are good or bad. We're not talking about like multinational corporation of state A and like civil rights labor group of state B. Like we're just excluding that. We're just looking at government-to-government relations. Yeah. Yeah. So this is just an example. So if you use GDELT, it just collects all the data. Like in 2011, January 2nd, there were like 3 events between US and China. So there was 1 cooperation, 2.5. Yeah, and then there were 2 conflicts, minus 2.0, 2.0. Yeah, so that's daily data. And the second column shows you that you're grouping all the data into months. So monthly data, and the third column shows you the yearly data. And we are using yearly data because daily data and monthly data, I mean, they're useful. They provide a lot of information, but I think it's very redundant. There are a lot of fluctuations. That's more like a noise rather than information. So we are using yearly data. Yeah. And also, if you use GDELT, there are like more than 23,000 news sources, but because it collects like most of the data in the internet, some of them are just from some random like personal blog or some local newspaper, so we just want to get rid of those. We just extracted information from some major newspaper article, or major press like Associated Press or like Reuters or New York Times. Yeah. So we only use 1,100 news sources instead of 23,000. Yeah. And then after removing all the noises and the redundant data, we end up with approximately 2 million events, 2 million news articles. And then that's how we actually created the index. But again, this is not time for that, so we can just skip that process. And so as I told you before, if you want to measure South Korea's peace index, then South Korea is maintaining relations with countries like US, China, Japan, North Korea, Russia, and etc. Yeah. You average all the relations. Yeah. Of course, they're not treated as equal. Weights are applied because South Korea has more interactions with countries like US, China, Japan, North Korea. Yeah. compared to countries like South Africa or Arabia, Saudi Arabia. Yeah. So if you aggregate that, average that, and then you can obtain the peace index. Yeah. For instance, yeah. So throughout the last 11-year span, yeah, South Korea's peace index it was positive number 1.9. Yeah. It was good in 2011. Yeah, and then it went ups and downs. It fluctuated a lot. Yeah. 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 So this is the graph. Yeah. This is how South Korea's peace index, South Korea's relations with other countries, it was positive, negative, and of course we know that this graph isn't enough because we actually need to know what happened when the peace index dropped or when the peace index hiked. Yeah, but that process our research director will talk more about that in the next presentation. Yeah, but yeah, so this is South Korea and United States peace index. It was good and bad. Yeah. Yeah, these are some examples. Yeah, yeah. Japan, yeah. China, yeah, yeah, yeah. North Korea, and you see a lot of negative numbers like minus. It means South Korea and North Korea relations were bad in those years. You don't see a lot of minuses like negative numbers in other relations like U.S. Yeah, U.S. South Korea, U.S. South Korea, China, or South Korea, Japan. But particularly in like the relations between the two Koreas, there are a lot of negative numbers. So yeah. Yeah, and then, yeah, and yeah, and this is a peace index for U.S. Yeah, and we can also make comparisons through this. So blue line shows the South Korea, North Korea relations. So there are ups and downs, but overall throughout in 5 years since January 2017, South Korea, North Korea relations were the bad among those four relations. Yeah. Yeah, and United States, and China, yeah, and then, yeah, and we can create very diverse peace index. So not just between one country and another country. We can also calculate peace index of one country and a group of countries like Korea, EU, 27 European countries, and Korea and NATO. Yeah, so I just wanted to show you an example. So, and actually that's it. And as I said, only just showing these numbers and graphs is not enough. So we are trying to fill in the gap by conducting some specific text analysis. What exactly happened when the numbers dropped or when the numbers increased? Yeah. So our research director will talk more about that. Yeah. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Hyung Lim. I'm a research director at Jeju Peace Institute. You might want to follow my reading. Okay. So Dr. Jung already said lots of things about Jeju Peace Institute Peace Index, but there are multiple indexes to measure interstate or intrastate cooperation on conflict. So I guess some of these already mentioned in Dr. Jung's presentation. Let me just go directly to how to complement this Jeju Peace Institute Peace Index. So basically we are using GDELT, but GDELT is basically, the final number we get from this GDELT analysis, that's just basically a quantitative number. But we are dropping lots of information when we get these numbers. So we are trying to complement this GDELT analysis by this text analysis. So let me talk about this text analysis a little bit more. So yeah, before that, this is the graph that shows, page 11. That shows that the ROC-US relationship between 2015 March to June 2022. It's already a little mentioned by Dr. Jung is that blue line shows that basically the cooperation or conflict level between Korea and the United States. If it's greater than 0, it's more likely they are being in cooperation period. Also, it's below 0, which is negative numbers. It's more likely to be in some kind of conflict season. It's entire numbers between March 2015 to June 2022. It's usually positive, so it means that the ROC-US relationship is very cooperative. These are exact numbers, monthly numbers, peace index between South Korea and the United States. So specifically the US-Korea relationship between 2017-22, right before 2017, there was a nuclear test by North Korea, and that was September 9th, 2016. There was a big event in this Korean peninsula. But after that, North Korea's nuclear test seems to be very stable. But after that, the November 2016, there was a big event in the United States. That was the election of President Trump. And also between South Korea and the United States, there was a President Trump accepted the North Korea US summit. That was March 2018. And also 3 North Korea US summits were held in Singapore in June, and Hanoi in February 2019, and also Panmunjom in 2019 June. And also there was a US-Korea summit on May 22nd, 2018. The peace index was over 5, so that means their relationship was really good. And Pompeo visited Pyongyang in 2018 October. So, and also the pattern of this peace index dropping close to -6 in October 2019. And that seems to be the reason, because US-ROC defense cost negotiation, there was some conflict around the defense cost negotiation. Also, a Jisomya extension agreement was one of the issues. Also, the North Korea launched the submarine ballistic missile, SLBM. So there are more events between United States and South Korea, but let me skip this a little bit. Just let me talk a little bit more about how to complement this quantitative reasoning by doing text analysis or text mining. Text mining, actually, we get lots of information from text. Actually, text has a lot of information. But when we reduce this information, when we reduce this text information to some quantitative numbers, we are dropping lots of information in the text. So when we use this text analysis, we can recover some of the information. That's what you're trying to do from this text mining. So I get 4,190 articles from New York Times. I Googled, not just Googled, I put some keywords there, South Korea and the United States. And there were 4,190 documents. And so I used these documents. So these are some word cloud. We call it this word cloud. Trump, the size of Trump is really big. That means Trump is the most powerful signifier here in this newspaper information. But the size of Trump seems to be a little bit smaller as time goes on. But this word cloud is just containing a lot of information. But if you see this graph, it shows that the top 10 keywords from 2017 to 2022, Trump still 2017, 2019, 2018, Trump is the most frequent words in that text analysis. Also, missile, 2018 leader. This leader is dear leader Kim Jong-un. So in 2020, coronavirus is the most frequent words. Definitely, it was pandemic started in basically in early 2020. So, and world people, and 22 China war. This was definitely this is Ukraine war. So it seems to be showed the status of world affairs. Seems to be pretty okay. And the reason we are doing this text analysis, we are planning to do some analyze some relating to some early warning. If you really do well about this text analysis, you can get more information from this text. If you see a lot of colors in the in the slide, that blue color shows that word is just mentioned in the first time. And the yellow means it's issue-related keywords. And the red colors, they are specifically China-related keywords that's specifically related to Huawei. And then the gray color, that keyword is related to South Korea. And you can see some trend here, specifically about China. The Huawei-related keywords is the frequency is going up. That means Huawei is getting more important in this analysis. So actually, that is overlapped with this 2018 trade war between United States and China. Also in 2020, in summer, there was some sanction against Huawei. So we can we can interpret this information by using our knowledge about that history of that season. So this is actually it's a topic modeling. It's a little bit technical things. We are using some latent derail allocation. It's just some kind of program. If we use this text analysis, they are basically distributing topics in basically for these dimensions. And also, if you're really good at this text analysis, and you can get when some really important topics really important. If you see this graph, this next one, page 22. The sanction on GT started in the middle of 2018, and the topic related to GT is really the highest point back then. So that seems to be the newspaper is following the trend, so we can actually retrospectively interpret this newspaper in the way. So also, this is another way we analyze this peace index. It shows that two relationships. The blue line shows that South Korea, North Korea relationship. PRK is a DPRK, and the red line is USA and China. So I was wondering, is this U.S.-China strategy competition is related to South Korea, North Korea inter-Korea relationship? So there's one way to do that grand causality test. I did that, but it doesn't seem to provide some statistically significant effect, and so it does not grand cause, which means U.S.-China relationship is not gonna cause or affect inter-Korea relationship in a statistically significant way, or not vice versa. So, yeah, this presentation is about the Jeju Peace Institute Index presented by Dr. Jung. Also, I wanted to tell more about how to complement or supplement this JPI index by doing some text analysis. This all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chung. Thanks so much, Mr. Lim, for your insightful presentations. Our next speaker is none other than our own Eliazi Al-Hosani, who is the head of the media office and the researcher. She will discuss the cultural diplomacy and promoting peace in the Middle East.
Assalamu alaikum. Peace be with you all. Pyong Hua. Sorry if I pronounced that wrong. It is Mr. Ambassador, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I'll be shedding light more on cultural diplomacy and promoting peace in the Middle East. First, I'd like to introduce it by saying for centuries, the Middle East has been preserved as an insecure place, preserved by interactable conflicts that draw local, regional, and also global actors into quagmire. Situated in a geopolitical hotspot marked by uncertainty, weak institutional structures, and social disintegration hindered the image of the Middle East. However, the Middle East is still known as a regional center of attraction at the crossroads of three important continents that oversee vital sea lanes, lucrative markets, and transit routes to rich energy deposits. These are heightened in importance due to the shift in global balance of power to Asia, an emerging order of multipolarity in world affairs. The importance of cultural diplomacy cannot be overstated in the complex neighborhood at such a key moment. In a region marked by historical conflicts and deep-rooted tensions, cultural diplomacy emerges as a powerful tool to bridge divides, foster understanding, and build a foundation for lasting peace. First, let's remind ourselves of what cultural diplomacy means or actually refers to, and refers to the use of cultural and also artistic exchanges to foster mutual understanding and cooperation between different nations. It transcends political boundaries and creates opportunities for dialogue and also empathy. Cultural diplomacy recognizes the intrinsic value of cultural diversity and seeks to promote inclusivity and respect. Look at art and music, but also the book fair that we're all attending today, for instance. They possess a universal language that can touch hearts and also souls, transcending barriers. Diplomacy is an art, and in other words, art can also be used as diplomacy. In the Middle East, it is also the home to diverse religious traditions. And fostering interfaith dialogue today is crucial to building peaceful coexistence. What is often referred to wrongly as the clash of civilizations overlooks the fact that conflict between religious traditions is due to more phenomena rather than something indeed inherited to religion. Religions in the Middle East is in fact share a common root, which is the Prophet Abraham. It was policymakers who have transposed cultural, tribal, familial conflict into other forms of tension in modern times, which hinders compromises that history allows committees to pursue in the past. This is why cultural diplomacy is now very, very important. It allows us to transcend such misunderstandings of the recent past, encourages open conversations through conferences like here today, where leaders, scholars, and also believers can engage in meaningful discussions. Platforms such as the Abraham Accords, the Cairo Interfaith Peace Forum, and the United Nations Alliances of Civilizations can help promote mutual respect and understanding among different religious communities. The Abrahamic House, for instance, in the UAE is a symbol of mutual respect, equity, solidarity, and dignity of the three religions of the Middle East. Lastly, when talking about cultural diplomacy, we should keep in mind that media plays a very significant role in shaping perceptions and narratives in the digital age we live in today. Cultural diplomacy leverages media platforms to promote positive narratives, showcases the region's cultural richness, and challenges stereotypes. Collaborative productions such as documentaries, films, even the small op-ed pieces that researchers can contribute and create opportunities to present authentic stories and increase cross-cultural awareness. In conclusion, I would like to state that cultural diplomacy serves a powerful catalyst for peace in the Middle East. By embracing our shared humanity, celebrating cultural diversity, and nurturing dialogue, we together can promote cultural diplomacy and building bridges of understanding that transcend borders and foster lasting peace in the Middle East. Thank you.
Ilyas. Thank you so much, Ilyazia. My first question goes to Mr. Lim and Mr. Chung. Why is the Peace Index, in your opinion, significant in understanding the overall peace levels in different countries? So in your opinion, why do you think this is important for everyone to understand how peace is important specifically for other countries?
So your question is why the peace
Why do
matters?
you think the index, is significant in understanding the overall, peace levels in different countries?
Yeah. You want to start?
Well, I have to think more about that, but I might not be directly answering your question. But I think this peace index is very important because where we usually say that countries' relations are good, the relations between the two countries are bad, good, bad, but that can be a bit subjective. Like, is it really good? Is it really good, or is it just your idea? Do you think the relationship is good? So it can be subjective, but what we are trying to do is find some objective measures, like numbers, specific numbers, like. Rather than saying that relationship is good, that relationship is like 4.0, the other relationship is 2.0. So in an objective sense, the former relations is better than the latter. So, I mean, of course, you can question whether is it really objective, or like what is objectivity? Like, of course, you can answer that, but we're trying to provide some specific numbers that that's what we are trying to do, so we can make comparisons, rather than just relying on our subjective ideas or our perception. Yeah.
Let me just add a couple of things, maybe just one thing. The peace index, the naming of peace index might be a little bit misleading. It's basically about the level of conflict and cooperation between countries. And it's greater than, so it's based on basically some Goldstein index. There is some state behavior between countries. If the highest point of cooperation between countries assists another country in war, but the worst case is wage a war against another country. That's the worst, the -10, and the best positive case is assists another country in the war is that's a positive 8.3. So these numbers, I guess, as already Dr. Jung mentioned, that we are just trying to, it's just one way. We are not saying this really show the entire relationship between two countries. We are just, it's one way to show some conflict or cooperation level between countries. So we call it peace index in that sense.
Thank you so much. My next question is for Ilyazia. Can you share an experience where you felt cultural diplomacy was important in people-to-people connection?
Thank you for your question, Rahaf. I think a great example would be my experience at Tel Aviv right after the Abraham Accords was signed. I was lucky enough to be sent from Trends Research and Advisors, since its main objective is to build a bridge between regional, local, to global think tanks. But before anything, let me say this. Today I sit here as a researcher working at a global think tank, but before anything, I sit here today as an Emirati. And for me to be an Emirati is for me to be Zayed. And for me to be Zayed, I need to be accommodating, peace-loving, moderate, developed, and someone that looks at people for who they are. It helps me not draw a line by you and us, but us together as one. I was given the opportunity to open the doors to a place we have never been before, because I knew for me to explore the unknown, I had to jump into the unknown. My internship at the Mushi Dayan Center for Middle Eastern and African Affairs lasted for a month. It was a great example of the importance of the people-to-people connections. However, I would need more than just a symposium to explain the importance of that. The importance of that, and to make you all understand that people-to-people connections are very important. An agreement can be signed every day, but to build a people-to-people connections is what makes an agreement succeed. The exchange of knowledge at the Mushi Dayan Center made me realize how important it was to simply communicate and listen. Because two individuals with the same interest in this case merely coexist with one another and can have different ideas and perspectives even if they studied in the same field. It helped me see people for who they are with the unfiltered lens that media gave me. And with that, we can together bring peace and bridge the knowledge gap that has been now created by media, because together we can look and speak to one another as who we are, not where we come from and who we believe in.
Thank you so much. I'd like to give a chance to the audience to ask any questions.
Thank you very much. Very good opportunities to learn about the peace index as well as the cultural diplomacy. I think about 6 or 7 years ago when I worked in the UNITAR, the Jeju Peace Center. At that time, they started to have this develop this peace index, and today I found that a lot of progress has been already made. And I know that this require a lot of manpower, data, as well as just the budget. So congratulations for this is the good development, and I hope that you can make a further development and progress. Back to your presentation, very good, the cultural diplomacy. Actually, I was the first appointed Korea's the ambassador for the public diplomacy. So public diplomacy has a very closely related with the cultural diplomacy. In 2003, back to those period when there was a war between the United States and Iraq. The U.S. government initiated Greater Middle East initiative in that year. And they also mobilized a lot of programs as well as just the manpower and the budget. However, their goal could not reach because they lacked some of misunderstanding on the tradition and the culture of Arab countries. In this sense, I think that we need to have more efforts to learn their histories and traditions and also the customs. Otherwise, they cannot make us the big progress. In this sense, I think, as you mentioned, the media's role is very important. Our organization, Korea Arab Society, was built in 2008 to promote understanding between the Koreans as well as the Arab people. However, we found that there is very much gaps in misunderstandings to each other's culture. That's why we are promoting a lot of cultural exchanges, programs. Back to your presentation, I have the questions. In Arab countries, including the UAE, your diplomacy can have coordinations among the political diplomacy, economic diplomacy, and also the cultural diplomacy. I want to ask you how much importance, how much attention is given to the cultural diplomacy in your country and also Arab countries.
I believe the UAE is seen as the heart of diversity and tolerance. It is seen as a country in a world, but rather than a world in a country. There are 200 different nationalities that live within the UAE. I think and I believe and I know that the UAE has taken significant steps in opening its doors in all stages of diversity, whether it was political, economic, or cultural. I'm going to shed more light on the people-to-people connection, the cultural one. The UAE, ever since the formation of the UAE, like I said, with our founder, the late Sheikh Zayed bin Sultan Al Nahyan, I think each one of us sitting here today, to be an Emirati, we hold a responsibility of being Zayed. And that responsibility is greater than you imagine, but easier than you imagine. Because we are enrooted, it is enrooted within us to look at people for who they are and not where they come from or who they believe in or what ethnicity they are in. To answer your question, I think it is more seen than answered. You can walk into the UAE and the second you walk into it, you can see the culture diversity, the acceptance. The UAE was also the first country in the Middle East to open the Abrahamic house, which brings together 3 different religions in one place. I hope that answers your question, and thank you very much.
With that, I'd like to conclude this session. Thank you for sharing your insights, everyone. On behalf of Trans Research and Advisory, I'd like to thank Jeju Peace Institute, our speakers, and the audience who have joined us today in this session. Thank you, everyone.
طبعا في النهاية نشكركم على الحضور، نشكر سعادة السفير على الحضور، ويشرفني أدعوك سعادة السفير. هناك تكريم لبعض المؤثرين اللي طبعا ساعدوا أو ساهموا في نجاح مهمتنا في سيول، طبعا على راسهم سفارة دولة الإمارات في كوريا الجنوبية، وحضور سعادتك واهتمام سعادتك لنا معانا من أول يوم، من أول ما وطأت أرجلنا هذه الأرض. ففضل سعادتك طبعا نتشرف بسعادتك ومعانا الرئيس التنفيذي لجيجو لتكريم بعض المؤثرين الموجودين اللي ساهموا في نجاح وجودنا هنا طبعا. وأتوجه بالشكر الجزيل لفريق عملي المتواجد من دولة الإمارات، ويشرفني أنهم كلهم بيور إماراتيين طبعا. يعني أنا أعتز جدا بوجودهم معاي، وهم شريك معاي في نجاحي في أي مهمة أقوم بها، سواء كان داخل دولة الإمارات أو خارج دولة الإمارات. بالفعل نحن عندنا قدرات إماراتية شابة نعتز بها في كل المحافل الدولية. شكرا لك سعادة السفير، وشرفني تواجدك معنا.
بالعكس أنا أشكركم على على يعني تحت الفرصة لنا نحن منكم وفيكم. بالعكس أنا اليوم فخور أني شفت ما شاء الله الطاقات الإماراتية الشابة، وما شاء الله الأخت اليازية يعني والخد معاها بعد ذكرين الاسم رهف. فصراحة نحن فخورين نشوف إماراتيين بهالقدرات بهالطاقات، وانتم وجودكم يعني نتكلم إنجليزي أحسن ولا عشان يفهموا. We're talking about public diplomacy. I think Trent is really sending a message about UAE and about UAE message and tolerance in general. So you're participating here in this very important event. This will add value to educate people about UAE and our UAE message and about the talented Emirati, the young talented Emirati. And I think, Jeju Peace Institute, I participated with them in many events. I talk about Abrahamic Accord many times and about peace and really UAE, not because it's my country, UAE is leading and really in tolerance and peace. And I think what we see, the Abrahamic Accord, that the many initiatives by the UAE is having a big challenge like any other country. We have more than 200 nationality with different faith, different race, but still they live in harmony and peace. So this is a good example, and thank you again. And really, I'm really honored and really happy to see all this Emirati here today with us in Korea. Thank you. Kamsa Hamida.
تفضل سعادة السفير، تفضل سعادة.